It's day 660 of the war in Gaza, and after the hostages for ceasefire deal stalled, Israel is signaling that a new offensive will soon be launched with full U.S. backing. U.S. President Trump acknowledged that Hamas does not want to make a deal and says they likely prefer to die. More from ILTV's Steve Leibowitz.
Washington and Jerusalem both expressed fury over the most recent Hamas response to the latest proposal for a 60-day Gaza truce and hostage deal. Israel and the United States now appear to be fully on the same page. The view from Jerusalem and Washington is that Hamas does not really want a deal, and Israel must now use its full military strength to rid Gaza of the Hamas threat. It's unclear exactly what the new strategy will look like and how it will ensure the safety or return of the 20 living Israeli hostages still held by Hamas. No longer sounding confident of a deal within a week, Trump said Hamas is not interested in reaching a deal and prefer to die. Israel, said Trump, will have to get rid of Hamas.
Yeah, Gaza, they pulled out of Gaza. They pulled out in terms of negotiating. It was too bad. Hamas didn't really want to make a deal. I think they want to die, and it's very, very bad. And it got to be to a point where you're going to have to finish the job. They really, they asked for things. Don't forget, we got a lot of hostages out. So now we're down to the final hostages, and they know what happens after you get the final hostages. And basically, because of that, they really didn't want to make a deal. I saw that. So they pulled out, and they're going to have to fight, and they're going to have to clean it up. You're going to have to get rid of it.
Meanwhile, the war inside Gaza is ongoing. Division 36 is operating to expand combat operations in the Khan Yunis area. The forces identified a terror cell that activated an explosive device against IDF forces with no casualties. Aircraft were called in and eliminated the cell. Forces of the 98th Division are continuing to operate in the Gaza City area. The 162nd Division is operating in northern Gaza to destroy weapons and terror infrastructure, both above and below ground.
And just in the last few hours, the IDF reported an officer and a reservist tracker were seriously wounded during fighting in Gaza. Both were evacuated to an Israeli hospital for treatment. 2 additional officers were also injured, one moderately and the other lightly. The incident comes one day after an IDF officer and soldier were killed. Captain Amir Saad, age 22, from Yanuch Jet, and Sergeant Inon Nuriel Vana, age 20, from Kiryat Tivon, both soldiers from the Golani Reconnaissance Unit. According to the IDF probe, an explosion planted by Hamas terrorists detonated near the 2 soldiers in the south of the Gaza Strip. The publication of these 2 fallen follow a weekend announcement by the IDF of another fallen soldier, Sergeant Major in reserves Betzalel Yoshua Mosbacher, age 32, from Avnei Eitan. He was wounded on July 19th and succumbed to his wounds. May their memory be a blessing. As accusations of starvation in Gaza intensify, Israel launches new humanitarian operations and pushes back on claims that it's to blame. More on this from ILTV's executive editor, Mayan Hoffman.
The Israeli army says it's stepping up humanitarian aid to Gaza and pushing back against what it calls a false and dangerous narrative. In a statement Sunday morning, the IDF, under political directive and through COGAT, said it would be implementing daily localized tactical pauses from 10 a.m. to 8 p.m. in specific areas of Gaza where the military is not active. These pauses aim to facilitate humanitarian efforts and will continue until further notice. The decision was coordinated with the United Nations and international aid organizations. In addition, secure corridors have been designated from 6 a.m. to 11 p.m. to allow the safe movement of UN and NGO convoys delivering food and medicine across the Strip. The announcement follows a move on Saturday night in which the IDF airdropped food into Gaza. 7 pallets of flour, sugar, and canned goods were dropped in coordination with international aid groups. The move comes as Israel faces growing international criticism over hunger in Gaza, and as graphic scenes of malnourished children in empty soup kitchens flood global headlines. But Israel insists it is not to blame. According to the army, over 250 aid trucks entered Gaza last week alone, and nearly 600 more were picked up by aid agencies from the Keren Shalom and Zikim crossings. Hundreds more are still waiting to be collected.
I want to empathize that the state of Israel doesn't limit the trucks of aid coming to Gaza Strip. The main issue or the main problem is the collection and distributing issue. And we encourage our friends and our colleagues from the international community to do the collection and to distribute it.
Still, the crisis is reportedly worsening. Humanitarian agencies say conditions in Gaza remain catastrophic. The UN Children's Agency UNICEF warns that aid is not reaching those who need it. The IDF added that fighting against Hamas, above and below ground, will go on.
Israel reacted with fury to the announced decision of French President Emmanuel Macron to recognize a Palestinian state in September. Other leading European nations chose not to follow Macron's lead, and U.S. President Donald Trump called the announcement irrelevant. More from ILTV's Devil Klein.
This was the announcement by French President Emmanuel Macron that caused anger in Jerusalem, Washington, and in the Jewish community in France. Consistent with its historic commitment to a just and lasting peace in the Middle East, I have decided that France will recognize the state of Palestine. Within a short time, Prime Minister Netanyahu fired back with this post. We strongly condemn President Macron's decision to recognize a Palestinian state next to Tel Aviv in the wake of the October 7th massacre. Such a move rewards terror and risks creating another Iranian proxy, just as Gaza became. A Palestinian state in these conditions would be a launchpad to annihilate Israel. And U.S. President Donald Trump said that he disapproved of Macron's move and that it was irrelevant.
Look, he's a different kind of a guy. He's okay. He's a team player, pretty much. But here's the good news. What he says doesn't matter. You know, it's not going to change it.
So how good is that?
Well, he made a statement, France, Macron. His statement doesn't carry any weight. He's a very good guy. I like him, but that statement doesn't carry weight.
A leader of the French Jewish community said that his president had made a grave moral mistake.
On est dans un contexte où le Hamas continue à vouloir tuer des Juifs, à vouloir tuer des Israéliens, où le Hamas continue à refuser toute reconnaissance de la présence et de l'État palestinien, de l'État israélien, et qui encore, dans sa déclaration, a dit finalement, il considère qu'Israël est un territoire occupé, c'est la libération de tous les territoires occupés. Donc en disant je vais reconnaître un État palestinien, moralement, on donne raison aux terroristes, on donne raison à ceux qui tuent les autres par haine.
Italy and the UK distanced themselves from the Macron move to recognize a Palestinian state before a ceasefire is achieved in Gaza.
The statehood that they need, that Palestine needs, and that Israel needs when it comes to its security. This can only be delivered by a diplomatic solution. We need the ceasefire. We are calling for a ceasefire. And then, of course, we will do everything we can from a position of a supporter for the region to get the circumstances where there's negotiations for the long-term statehood in Palestine and security for the region that they need.
And joining us now to discuss all of this is former ambassador to France, Ambassador Avi Pasnel. Thank you for joining.
Thank you for having me.
Ambassador Pasnel, I want to start with the latest on Gaza. U.S. President Trump stated that Hamas didn't want to make a deal, and we see that there's an impasse with the failed negotiations. What do you think that the U.S.-Israel strategy should be here?
You know, with the Hamas, it is possible that they want a deal, but they made a miscalculation and gave an answer which was unacceptable both to the United States and to Israel. I don't know. It's a possibility, and we have to wait a few days to see if this is the case. And if it is not the case, and the Hamas is really serious about not wanting to make a deal with Israel, then I think we have no other option but to increase our military pressure after the Hamas and go and look for them where they are. But again, I repeat, I think we need to wait a few days to see what they really meant.
But even if, you know, the negotiations don't end up resulting in any success, how realistic are military-only approaches? We see many hostage families asking not to engage in military rescue operations, for example. As a diplomat yourself, what are your thoughts on this?
As I told you, I still hope that the answer of the Hamas was a tentative answer in trying to get more out of Israel. And there are indications in that sense. But if it is not, what else remains? I mean, we want our hostages back. We need them badly here. And what else remains? The only thing that remains is military pressure, because I take out some proposals of some Israeli generals or some far-right Israeli politician to starve the Gaza Strip. This is not Jewish, it's not moral, and it's politically not feasible. So there are two options. Either we wait a few days to see if the Hamas was serious about the response or if it was only a tactical move in the negotiation. And if not, yes, we will have to increase military pressure and at the same time be ready to re-engage in negotiation if the situation allows.
Now let's shift over to France. You were an ambassador to France. You know the territory well. What is Macron up to when declaring France will recognize a Palestinian state? Why is he doing this?
I think that Macron himself doesn't know. I mean, it makes no sense. Nobody understands what Macron did. I mean, even, let's say that you are for the two-state solution. So what could the negotiations be about of such a solution? The negotiation would end between Israel and the Palestinians with the establishment of a Palestinian state, and Israel in return would get all kinds of deals and maybe exchange of territories and let settlers be there, etc., etc., etc. But if you give now on a platter of silver to the Palestinians that they have a Palestinian state, what is there to negotiate about? I go in the logic of Macron. I go through the logic of Macron. What is there to negotiate about? Nobody understands. You know what? Even people critical of Israel in France do not understand why Macron did that move. They believe that it is, maybe the answer is very simple. He doesn't like Israel. It happens. We have other leaders who don't like Israel. The Prime Minister of Spain doesn't like Israel. The President of Brazil doesn't like Israel. So maybe Macron also is in that line of leaders who don't like Israel.
Now, do you believe that other countries will follow this move, that it will be a snowball effect?
Look, he tried very hard to push the UK and Germany, Canada and Italy also into that line. And for the time being, he hasn't succeeded, which does not mean that he will not continue its effort in order not to leave France isolated, and that these countries or other countries will not follow. But even, again, I tell you, even countries critical of Israel's policies and position do not understand the logic of this decision. Because, again, even those who do want a Palestinian state understand that this runs against. And I hope that most of the countries that are being approached by France, and I know of France's efforts to try and get other countries on board, and for the time being without success, I hope that this will continue and that Macron will remain isolated in that step that nobody understands.
And we know that Italy already said that they're not in line with this kind of move.
Absolutely.
Grazie, Italia. Avi Pazner, thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Israel Bonds, the heartbeat of solidarity, the powerhouse of support. When the Israeli-Hamas war hit, Israel Bonds stood tall, proving we're more than just an investment, we're a lifeline. Israel Bonds pledges to ensure Israel thrives and flourishes. Investing in Israel Bonds isn't just a financial move, it's a declaration for resilience, strength, and a better future for Israel. Join us and let solidarity echo through generations.
When Israel is under fire, the world watches. But we act. Since 1901, Jewish National Fund USA has stood with our homeland. From the moment missiles rained down, we were there, caring for children of essential workers, turning shelters into sanctuaries, providing fire trucks and more. Israel is our family, and you always show up for family. To support the people of Israel for today and tomorrow, turn to the trusted name in philanthropy, Jewish National Fund USA.
Last night, police arrested the suspect in Thursday's car ramming attack in Kfar Yona. The suspect was arrested in the area of Pardes Chana, suspended in the air in a crane at a construction site. He was lowered to the ground ahead of his arrest. 8 soldiers were wounded in the attack when the suspect rammed his car into soldiers waiting at a bus stop at the Betli Junction near Kfar Yona. 1 terrorist was arrested on the scene, but the second, identified as 27-year-old Arkan Khaled from Taibe, escaped until his capture last night. Israeli naval forces intercepted the vessel Handala, organized by the Freedom Flotilla Coalition in international waters, roughly 100 kilometers west of Gaza. The flotilla was attempting to breach Israel's naval blockade while carrying about 21 people on board, including activists and journalists, along with some symbolic humanitarian aid. The takeover was carried out live via streams from the ship, which abruptly cut off as Israeli soldiers boarded. Moments earlier, activists were seen singing Bella Ciao on deck. The vessel was subsequently towed to Ashdod port, where all on board were detained and set to face deportation. Israel's foreign ministry stated that everyone aboard is safe and underscored that any attempt to breach the blockade is dangerous and unlawful. This marks the second interception in recent weeks following June's seizure of the Madeleine, which carried high-profile activists, including Greta Thunberg. With snapback UN sanctions looming, Iran and leading European nations opened what were termed frank nuclear talks in Istanbul. After the meeting in Istanbul with representatives of France, Germany, and the UK, Iranian negotiators said that Tehran had absolutely no trust in the United States. Iran said it would continue nuclear talks with the E3, even as European diplomats warned that snapback sanctions should be triggered against Tehran should it fail to address concerns regarding its highly enriched uranium stockpile. The talks held at Iran's consulate were the first such face-to-face meetings since Israel and the U.S. bombed Iran's nuclear facilities during the 12-day Israel-Iran war last month. According to Iranian officials, the talks were serious, frank, and detailed, and both sides had presented specific ideas on sanctions relief and the nuclear issue. A U.S. brokered meeting between an Israeli and a Syrian minister was held over the weekend in Paris. The immediate goal was to diffuse tensions and maintain the ceasefire inside Syria. ILTV's Steve Leibowitz has more.
Government ministers from Israel and Syria met for the first time since 2000 in a U.S.-facilitated dialogue. U.S. envoy Thomas Barak organized the meeting held over the weekend in Paris. Minister of Strategic Affairs Ron Dermer reportedly represented Israel, and Syrian Foreign Minister Asad al-Shiabani led the Syrian side. Barak said the goal of the meeting was dialogue and de-escalation, and he claimed to have accomplished both. According to Barak, all parties reiterated their commitment to continue calming efforts. Before the most recent sectarian strife in Sweda province in Syria, Israel and Syria had indirect U.S.-brokered talks in recent months aimed at warming tensions between the new Syrian al-Shara regime and Israel. There were unconfirmed reports of direct in-person talks between officials, but this was the first time ministers met face-to-face. The last time Israel and Syrian ministers met was in the year 2000, when then U.S. President Bill Clinton hosted then Israeli Prime Minister Ehud Barak and former Syrian Foreign Minister Farouk al-Shara in West Virginia peace talks. Arab media reports say the Dermer al-Shiabani meeting focused on security matters in the wake of the deadly sectarian clashes that saw Israel strike Damascus and Sweda province in defense of the Druze minority. U.S. envoy Barak helped engineer a ceasefire in Syria that appears to be holding.
Sentenced to life in 1987 for the murders of an Israeli and a U.S. diplomat, George Abdallah has been freed by a French prison and is heading home to his native Lebanon, a free man. The notorious 74-year-old terrorist was imprisoned for 40 years and is one of France's longest-serving inmates. He was found guilty for the separate murders of Israeli Yaakov Balsimantov and U.S. attaché Charles Robert Ray in Paris in 1982 and 1983. Abdallah was convicted of the shooting of U.S. official Colonel Charles Ray outside his apartment. He also was convicted with planning the murder of Israeli diplomat Balsimantov by an unknown female assailant in a Paris suburb in March 1982. The Paris court that released Abdallah did so on condition that he leaves French territory and never return to France. He had been eligible for release since 1999, but all previous requests were denied. The U.S. has consistently opposed freeing Abdallah. Wounded in 1978 during the first Israel-Lebanon war, Abdallah was a member of the Marxist Popular Front, worked with European extremists, including the Italian Red Brigades and the German Red Army faction. And now, do you want to transform your love for Israel into meaningful action? ILTV is proud to partner with Blessed by Israel, a company that brings you extraordinary products handcrafted by the brave pioneers of Judea and Samaria. Every purchase supports their mission and strengthens Israel's heartland. Let's take a closer look at Blessed by Israel and how you can make a difference today.
As the world moves to boycott Israel, the people working to restore life to the biblical heartland face daily challenges. Blessed by Israel offers a simple way to support these efforts by bringing unique and beautiful products from Judea and Samaria directly to you. From the hilltops of God's land to your home, you can find exceptional items crafted by families and small businesses in the heart of Israel. With U.S.-based warehouses, Blessed by Israel ensures affordable prices and fast delivery. Choose from a range of products, including skincare, artisan flowers and foods, olive oil, tahini, honey, and much more. There are many great options for giving wonderful gifts to your loved ones. Visit blessedbyisrael.com to explore these products and discover the inspiring stories behind them. Scan the QR code on your screen to take part in fulfilling God's prophecies.
Israel announced over the weekend that it was sending an Israeli Air Force aircraft to Cyprus to support the Cypriot effort to control the raging wildfires that have been consuming the Mediterranean island in recent days. ILTV's Devo Klein has the report.
Local Cypriot authorities are confirming that 2 people have been killed in the recent wildfires that have slowly consumed their way through the little island, tearing their way through Limassol. 14 villages have been evacuated as temperatures peak at a whopping 44 degrees Celsius, which is just over 110 Fahrenheit. Israel's foreign ministry announced over the weekend that Israel will join the efforts to contain the blaze, and Foreign Minister Saar confirmed that he and his Cypriot counterpart are in close and constant contact. He added that, quote, Israel stands with Cyprus, a close friend and neighbor, and remains committed to offering assistance in times of emergency. Cyprus were among the first to offer assistance to Israel in May of this year, when wildfires broke out in the Judean hills near Jerusalem. Now Israeli teams make their way to Cyprus, an incredible show of cooperation, solidarity, and shared support.
Now let's take a look at the weather forecast. Clear skies are expected around most of the country tonight, with temperatures reaching lows of 26 degrees Celsius or 78 degrees Fahrenheit. Then tomorrow we'll see sunny skies alongside hot temperatures, seeing highs of 35 degrees Celsius or 96 degrees Fahrenheit. That's a wrap for today's news. For the latest updates from Israel on all your devices, be sure to follow our ILTV channels and our new live channel. And you can also catch us on Screen IL with 24/7 live coverage. Stay informed with the latest news straight from the heart of Israel. I'm Sivan Raviv. Be well, be safe, and thank you so much for watching.